Everything. How many of you guys were able to understand what the hell Dex Tools was? Hopefully, because we're gonna get into Pepe today. Even though Pepe is no longer relevant, we're gonna talk about Pepe. Do we have any Pepe holders in here at all? I'm curious. Or people that are pissed that they didn't get into Pepe? Is my face tiny? Shit. I don't know Pepe either. It's okay. I'm a little bitter about it, but it is what it is. But you know what? We can find out today what the next alpha is from figuring out what Pepe is. Because there are people that are behind Pepe. And clearly, they know how to run a good pump and dump, probably. So let's figure out what it is. And yeah, it is a bunch of kids. Honestly, it's something I was talking about with a couple people today. Like, Pepe is definitely launched by a bunch of kids. This is like a new thing. Like, I feel like all the old projects no one cares about anymore, and you have a bunch of like 20-year-olds literally launching these tokens in their rooms and then pumping them to shit. Now, how were they able to do it? We'll also talk about that because, in all honesty, it's easier than ever to launch your own coin today, which is wild. So, what the hell did I just do while I was talking for the last like 2 minutes? I probably should walk you guys through that. I went to CoinGecko. I went to take a look at the Pepe contract address, token contract address, and I'm pulling it up in Etherscan right now. So here it is in Etherscan. Tons and tons of transactions, right? We see that people are still obviously transacting with that stuff, right? But what is actually going on here? But before we get into, maybe who's behind this, we probably should look into Pepe, the project itself. And I don't know if you guys have actually taken a look at the website, but I'll run you guys through it real quick. Basically, Pepe is this shit meme coin, right? It's been added to various different sexes, which I think is wild. And Brian's gonna make fun of me now for calling it sexes. And I will stand by that it's sexes and not kexes because sex, centralized exchange, it makes sense. Anyways, Pepe, we get the freaking meme. We understand what's going on here. Tokenomics are pretty simple, right? So they have like whatever 420 billion effing coins, right? And 6.9% of them goes to sexes. And actually 6.9% of those, we'll see this later today, have already been locked up into a multi-sig to then go to sex listings, which is awesome. And we're going to check out that ENS handle a little bit down the line. But basically, what is this coin? It's a pump and dump, right? We see that apparently they're going to create this Pepe Times digital newsletter, formation of token gated Discord group, all of this crap right now, right? But all they currently have is a Telegram channel, right? And as some of you guys already mentioned, their Telegram channel, probably a whole bunch of 20 somethings. The website is, yeah, I think their website's pretty good. It's pretty dank, I'd say. And phase 3 of this actually is they plan on launching this thing called Pepe Academy. Honestly, this is giving me like ICO's 2017, 2018 flashbacks, and I'm feeling a bit of PTSD right now. I will not lie. But let's remember this page because we're probably going to find another project down the line. And let's just burn this into our minds because it's going to come back to haunt. Because as I said, literally every shitcoin is just doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? Now, one thing that I should probably mention about Pepe, and we should actually take a look at their Twitter right now, is their Twitter's got a ton of different followers, right? But they're only following one individual. And you might be like, sweet, this is probably someone from the project team. This is awesome, right? I don't have a target price for Pepe. I do not do candlestick analysis. If you guys ever thought I did candlestick analysis, you're so wrong. I pretend like I do that on Dex Tools, but I don't. But on the Pepe Twitter channel, right, they're only following one person, right? And if you take a look, it's Matt Fury. Now, who is this person? Like, and you might be like, I don't know who the hell this is, but they got a ton of followers, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Matt Fury is actually the creator of Pepe. I didn't know that, but he is. And if you go on zogs.fun, you'll actually find out that he's like shilling some project of weird drawings as well. And he apparently like has this marketplace, like this weird NFT marketplace. It is a trip. I feel like I'm on an acid trip right now. I feel like this is something Gen Z would love. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm tripping. I think I'm good here. Anyways, so they're only following one dude. There's nothing else that we can really glean out of this Twitter, right? So that's why I kind of wanted to dig on chain, and I thought this would be a really good example for us to do. I think actually doing an acid stream next time would be amazing. Um, I don't know how to do it, but like if I ever do PowerPoint slides for you guys, I will do them with all of the weird, flying in letters, 3D font, everything for you guys. Sparkle, glitter, all that crap. Um, like we'll make it super acid trip. But yeah, I feel like I just went on a trip and we're back to reality right now. Um, so yeah, we can't find out much about Pepe. We can go, you guys can check out their Telegram channel on the website, but like, or from the website rather, but I don't think it's that great. They've got a Discord as well. I mean, taking a look at the Discord can be extremely helpful too, because it could also give you a sense of like who's a part of the project. But what's even better is actually looking on chain. Why do I say that? Is because in most Discord channels, you have a bunch of mods and you can't really actually tell who's about part of the project team and who isn't, right? We're going to spend some time, probably maybe next time or a couple other times, digging into Discords. And this might actually be a good Discord to dig into to actually see, like, can we potentially figure out who's who and who's actually totally just scamming? Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of Discord users, particularly in crypto, they'll use NFT profile pics. If you ever do that, just note that you basically dox your address. And we'll talk about that probably down the line, even today, actually. So yeah, just note when you pick a profile pic, and it's your NFT for your favorite NFT, you basically are doxing yourself for people like me, who like to stalk you, which is yay. Um, anyways, let's start digging in on chain. So let's go back to this, onto whatever it is, CoinGecko. And I'm actually going to just go ahead and go to Etherscan right here, right? This is an ERC20 token. It's launched on Ethereum. It's on Etherscan, duh. So if we click on we can see here all the transactions, but what we actually care about is the token contract. Why? Because we want to actually see who deployed the token. Who deployed the token contract is basically who paid to create this token. That can tell you a lot about a project. We can also analyze down the line as well, like where these project team members might have cashed out to and who Pepe whales are, but Pepe whales might not necessarily be the same people who deployed the contract. They might be close, right? And it might actually be like a really interesting investigation to do. But I think actually the easiest thing always to do is to just check who deployed the contract, because 9 times out of 10, they might be bag holders themselves, but they probably are interacting with other projects, other addresses that might be of interest, right? So when you go ahead and click on this contract, right, we see here that it was created at this transaction hash, right? And we can see that we can click on the transaction hash if we want to, but we can see the Pepe deployer address right here. Now, the reason I'm clicking on the transaction hash is I want to burn this into your guys' mind. This token was launched on April 14th. So that's like less than a month ago, right? And now it has like, what did we see? Like some sort of like $8 billion market cap, some sort of wild market cap like, or 800? Maybe it's 800 million? Something wild like that I saw in here earlier. Anyways, doesn't matter. It has an insane market cap for only being around for like a few weeks. Anyways, yeah, I hope your dad launched Pepe. That would be wild if he did, though. Some of you people might be like super anal retentive and might be like, oh, Heidi, we looked at the website, can't you just look at who registered the domain? Like, can't we figure out information about that? Yeah, we can do that. Let's go do that right now for those of you who are now like worried about it. And check out who registered this domain. I'm already telling you, it's not going to give you any information. Why? Because everyone's become pretty smart about this. So these guys use Namecheap, no names in here, per usual. This is really good OPSEC, by the way. You want to see a project doing this. Why? Because if these guys want to actually be Anon and want to actually run this project, they don't want to dox themselves. This is actually really good practice. It's really good practice regardless, right? If people don't want to stay Anon, because you can actually dox yourself and actually present your entire street address or your entire business address here, right? You do not want to do that, right? I actually don't know about Unlonely app, but let's take a look right now. Uh-oh, Ryan. I'm kind of scared. Oh, good job. Good job. Good job. Phew. I was sweating there for a minute. kind of nervous. Anyways, But yeah, this is really good practice. So if you have your favorite website that you want to check out, props.google, Google's lame. But like if you look at like, I don't know, your favorite project's website, we'll do this for some other projects that we find along the way. Like this is a fun one to always do and fact check on because um noobs or people that are really not well versed in this shit will fuck up on this every single time. And it's really nice. People are getting smarter to it, and a lot of these hosting providers will advertise like free anonymization. So you're less likely to find this with newer projects, but with older ones, you will. Anyway, let's go to the PEPE deployer address. So this address is the one that launched the tokens. Remember, this address launched the tokens on April 14th, right? And here it's only got 63 transactions with it. That is tiny. That is nothing. And one thing we can also do with this, by the way, is if this seems really overwhelming to you guys, and it sometimes does to me when I see more than 100 transactions here, and you guys know this if you guys have attended any other streams I've ever done with Brian, I usually pop this in immediately into the bank, right? And it is going now to Coinbase wallet. Can you please stop? That's also one of my Anon addresses. So feel free to donate to that address that you just saw. Because it has no money in it. I'd love money. JK, please don't. But this address here, we can see this is a PEPE deployer address. We see the majority of monies though, sitting on ETH. We can see where the majority of money honestly is, and it's mostly sitting actually in Ethereum, right? And partially also in PEPE and whatever this PP is. And we're gonna figure out what the fuck that is as well. Now, the thing let's go back to the PEPE deployer address real quick. So, boop, it's right here. Let's actually figure out who first funded this thing, because there's a lot to read out of these transactions. But first thing I usually look at it is who funded this address from the get-go. And who funded it? Surprise, surprise, it's from Bybit, right? Bybit's a huge international exchange, right? They mostly do crazy margin trading stuff, but that's not really going to tell us any information, right? We just know whoever deployed the PEPE contract, which happened here, right? They deployed the PEPE contract right here, right after they received the money. So it looks like probably less than 10 hours later, right? They deployed the contract. So, okay, this doesn't tell us much, right? And they're doing all sorts of weird approves and transfers here. We're going to go to the token transfers page in just a minute, but TLDR for you guys, basically what they're doing is they're creating the token and adding a ton of liquidity then to Uniswap. Duh, right? Because that's the only way they're going to be able to pump their token, right? And so that's why they're transferring on money all over the place. Now, they're doing a whole bunch of other stuff here. They've got like a blacklist. They've got all sorts of stuff in here. So let's actually take a look at the PEPE contract real quick. And I'm not going to spend that much time on looking at contracts because that's pretty boring for a lot of people. But if you ever want to take a look at a token contract on Etherscan, you can just click on read contract here. And if it's a proxy contract, which we'll see a little bit later down the line, there's also a way to read a proxy contract as well. But here we can see all sorts of interesting stuff, right? So we can see whether or not an address has been added to the blacklist, which is interesting, right? That PEPE has a blacklist function. That to me stood out from the get-go because when you create a token, you don't necessarily want to, it depends on whether or not you want a blacklist or not. Because if you have a blacklist, you suddenly have then the obligation to blacklist addresses, right? And if you're the PEPE people, you might be like, yeah, we're going to just blacklist a whole bunch of shills, right? But what if the government decides to hit you up to be like, yo, I need you to blacklist this stuff? Then you probably have to comply too, right? And so there's this weird balance that you need to strike. And so blacklists are really weird. Anyways, we can see who the owner is, which is the zero address, which is great. We can see a whole bunch of other stuff in here, but we're not going to dig too much into this. So anyways, let's go back to this initial these PEPE transactions here. And one thing, there are a couple things that stood out to me, and I'm going to go actually to this page here. So if you take a look at the PEPE address, it's receiving a lot of zero values from people, right? You see this transfer with a star. What that means is they're not receiving money, but they're receiving a message, a memo. And let's actually take a look at the Milady Maker, because the Milady Maker, aka the deployer for the Miladies, sent them a message 21 days ago to write, hello, PEPE, I see your development. Is there any ways you can share PEPE with the Milady Maker NFTs community? We can collab together, basically, right? Anyways, a whole bunch of other projects actually ended up doing this as well, which is kind of cute. And yeah, like we can take a look at all sorts of other people. But they have no shame, right, in just reaching out to the PEPE deployer to just basically ask for money and ask for collab opportunities. So like, um, it's kind of weird to me that these happen, but it's not that bizarre. The Milady Maker in particular is a kind of a funny one. If I can go back, where did the Milady Maker go again? Here. The Milady Maker deployer is a really funny one because they reached out to a whole bunch of other people. So here they sent to the PEPE deployer, right? But they also wrote to the Euler finance exploiter like like a month or two ago, and we're like, yo, let's talk, basically. Like, I think that the ladies are pretty badass, right? Because in this message, they're saying basically, yeah, like this one guy from the project really needs his money back, but like in other times, they were basically just like, yo, let's talk. And it's pretty, to me, it's pretty cool that they decided to even reach out from the get-go. But yeah, a lot of people actually message exploiters all the time begging for money. And what's funny is actually, yeah, we just looked at that one. What's funny actually with messages to exploiters is sometimes exploiters will actually give money back. So that's what actually happened with the Euler finance exploiters is they like I don't know how they decided to randomly do this, but like everyone was writing messages being like, "Oh, I lost a ton of money." Yeah, no shit. So like a lot of people lost a lot of money, right? And one guy did this and was like, "Oh, I lost 80 some odd Weth, and I have family or whatever have you. Please give my money back or whatever have you." And they actually did. They actually sent him 100 ETH just straight up. Actually, it was Steph that the guy had lost, but yeah, it's can happen, right? So you may as well shoot your shot. It doesn't cost that much money. Maybe right now today it does because gas is wild. Um, but yeah, usually not actually that bad of a tactic to maybe pray to get your money back. The thing is, though, is I don't actually know what the ramifications are with, whether or not you might have to end up giving that money back at the end of the day if law enforcement gets involved. I know, for example, the dude who lost like whatever the 78 Steph that he lost, he actually ended up giving back, I think like whatever the difference was between the 100 Weth and that to the Euler finance team again, because he was just like, yeah, I just don't want anything of it. I'll just take my cut and run. And he did. And that's lucky dude, right? He didn't have to wait around to get his money back. Anyways, let's go back to this. So there are a whole bunch of different notes in here, right? Um, do I say ETH or ETH? I say Steph, but I say ETH. I know, it doesn't make any sense. It's very weird. I need to get over that. Yeah, I say ETH, but Weth. I don't say ETH because ETH sounds weird. ETH sounds like I don't know. It sounds like ick. I don't know. Anyways, there were two transactions in here though that I thought were super interesting, and I was like, suddenly when I saw these, I was like, this is live stream material. And these are these two transactions right here. So it's for two ETH each, right? And the PEPE deployer is sending to two separate addresses. And so that to me was weird because let's actually filter out any outgoing transactions this thing has ever had. If you look at outgoing transactions, it's never sent that much money ever, right? And it's sent in exact proportions of 2 ETH. And this literally happened 6 days ago. So maybe you can probably go back in time and figure out when I decided to start prepping for the live stream. Probably less than 6 days ago. So anyways, I started looking at these, and let's start looking at these ourselves to try to figure out what the hell's going on. And what you'll notice when we start doing this crap is I end up getting lost through all of my different tabs, so I end up starting to close them all out, and I'm sure we're going to end up closing out shit that we don't mean to close out. But here, this is the first transaction of the 2 ETH transactions, and what we see is the PEPE deployer sent to this thing, looks like 26 days ago, right? And then, again, it sent 2 ETH to this thing 6 days ago, and it registered an ENS domain, right? Interesting. And it still has 1.9 ETH, right? So what is actually happening here? And by the way, look what else happened. The Milady Maker messaged this address. So let's actually take a look at what the Miladies wrote. So they're saying the same shit again. We want to collab with you, basically, right? Cool. Okay. So then we see this ENS stuff, right? And it's kind of interesting because we see that there's a renewal going on, right? And we can actually see that this person actually registered their this address registered the ENS domain over 26 days ago. So let's take a look at what this registration looks like. So you can see that they minted this token. We can't see what this token is. maybe up here in the transaction actions tab, we can sometimes see it. Other times when you're seeing transfers of the ENS token, specifically the NFT, you might not actually necessarily always see this. But here we can see this is the PEPE sexwallet.eth. Wait a second, we saw that earlier, right? We saw that on the PEPE VIP site that I literally decided to close. Of course, I literally was just talking about how I was going to close that site. But here we know that this is exactly the funds that should be in the 6.9% funds should be in this guy, right? But if we take a look back, right? So they registered this thing 26 days ago. And by the way, let's click out of the ladies. If we go here to see more details, we can also see here what the name of the ENS domain is, who the owner is. It's kind of nice to be able to read it this way. Oftentimes, I recommend do not trust the transaction actions thing on Etherscan. Reason being is A, you're going to get lazy, because B, no other block explorer that's a copy pasta of Etherscan, like I'm thinking like Snowtrez, I'm thinking of Polygon Scan, I'm thinking of Arbiscan, none of them do this, right? So you're not going to know what the hell you're reading. So don't over rely on this crap. I would instead always just look at the input data or just look at the logs. And we'll start taking a look at logs later down the line. But here, okay, we got the PEPE Sex Wallet. Awesome. But the PEPE Sex Wallet was transferred out of this address, right? Where's the PEPE Sex Wallet now? Now, we can cheat here. And I actually feel like cheating, but we're not going to cheat because we're actually going to do this on Etherscan. But here, we can see that it was transferred from this address, which we're looking at now, to this 5B blah blah address, right? So this guy now is the holder of the PEPE Sex Wallet address. Now, you might say, wait a second, I don't see the NFT in here. Boom, you see it right here. But you see that, wait a second, this address, it's not your average address. It's actually a contract, right? And that's something I really want to call out here. So this thing's a contract. And from one thing that I've noticed with contracts is that it's really annoying when you have particularly a Gnosis multisig, which is exactly what this is. We can see the tag here, but we're also seeing the contract in just a second. Is that they don't carry over ENS domains very well right now, at least not to Etherscan. So even though this is the PEPE Sex Wallet, like if you're not well versed in looking for this thing, you're not going to be able to find it unless you go to the NFT transfers page. But this is a Gnosis multisig. Do you guys here know what a Gnosis multisig is and how one works? I feel like a lot of people here on this like stream probably know what it is. Maybe? Yes? No? Anyone in the chat want to hazard a guess? I can't see if you guys are chatting or if you guys totally went like AWOL on me. But it sounds like no one knows what a Gnosis multisig is, so I'm just going to tell you guys. A Gnosis multisig is it's basically a multisig wallet, right? Where you have multiple signers in order to sign off on a transaction. So you can have maybe, let's say you and your best friend, you guys decide you want to co-invest in some project together, right? So you might set up a Gnosis multisig where you and them have to sign off on a transaction in order for a transaction to go through. So let's say they execute a transaction. Well, you have to sign off before that transaction can actually be broadcast to the blockchain. And in this case here, that's exactly what this is. So they've deployed a multi-sig. What that basically means is there are a couple of different signers who sign off on the fact that these guys are going to be transferring funds to sexes. And so because of that, we could probably figure out who may or may not be behind this. And the way that you do this for a Gnosis multisig is relatively easy. One way you can do it is by taking a look at the contract. And you can actually, and here this is a proxy contract, but we could read it as a contract, or read it as a proxy rather. And here, just scroll down to get owners, click query. Boom, we get all the different signers, right? And these signers are really interesting actually because what they all have to do is they have to have a specific number of people to sign off at in order to execute a transaction. So in this case, I think you have 8 different addresses here that are participating. 5 of them need to sign off before a transaction can be deployed, right? And that's pretty wild. That is pretty effing intense. And so what I'm probably going to do right now in the chat is I'm just going to paste in these addresses and let me know if what you guys find, and if you guys find anything from these guys. So I'm going to just pop them in there. I'm going to make this shit interactive. But one thing I found was that there's most addresses like this guy. Let's just check this guy out. Most addresses, this one actually has done transactions. We'll take a look at that guy later, actually. But, yep, empty. Exactly. All of them are empty except for one, right? And you have to go through them painstakingly, which is really effing annoying. But there is one address in here, and it's this guy, and I'll add it to the chat right now. This guy is not empty, right? This guy has received 0.05 ETH. And by the way, when I initially saw this, I was like, this is a gigabrain move. This is a gigabrain move from these guys. Why? Because they didn't end up doxing themselves. Not usually what you have with these Gnosis multi-sigs is people will end up doxing themselves. You'll have one like person who has their ENS domain, which is connected to their real identity. You'll sometimes have people who have done stupid transactions like 20 billion years ago. You'll have all sorts of shit that you'll find in the Gnosis multi-sig signers. And it is amazing. Yes, it can be empty because it's just a signature. And that's why this is a gigabrain move, right? Because these people are only signers. They don't need to have money in there. So why did this guy send money to this address? I don't know, right? But in order to actually execute a transaction, that one final signer, right? It actually could be any of the signers, but once you've received 5 signers, and at least in this case, someone of those 5 has to execute that transaction and pay the gas fee, right? And right now, there are only 2 addresses that have money in them. One is that first one, which we'll talk about later, because I want to leave that one to the side for now. And then you have this other one. But besides that, no one can pay for these transactions, right? And so, yep. Oh, I'm so glad someone's already been digging through this. Yes. So if you go back to take a look at this address, what you'll end up finding is this address has only done 19 transactions ever. This is the address that then tops up the other one that's the signer. So clearly this is the same guy, right? And you'll see they've only ever received they've received a couple of transactions, ETH related transactions, right? Or they've done them. And they've done a whole bunch of other USDC and USDT transactions. And you can see these are for high dollar values, right? And so it is wild, right? To look at some of these dollar figures. And I'm not going to use any fancy tools. Yes, Arkham's amazing, will not lie. But I think it's probably better for us right now to use anything free we can get. In fact, actually, there's one free tool that I really like using, which is MetaSleuth. And I probably will show you guys that a little bit later down the line, but I think this is relatively easy to just kind of wrap your mind around for now. But if we take a look at this particular address, right, we see that it sent funds to this guy, by the way. This is one of our contracts. Yep, this is one of our addresses that this guy literally just sent the majority of his money to. So he actually cashed out of a lot of funds today, right? This is only 6 hours ago. And I was like, oh, damn, this is like a hot one today. But where did he end up getting his money from? What is he exactly doing? And as someone already said in the chat, he's receiving the majority of his money from MEXC. But how do we know that, right? So if you go take a look back through transactions, what you'll initially find on the transaction page, and I'm sorry I'm like clicking around here a lot, is you see a ton of outflow, right, in ETH, but you never see that amount of necessarily inflow. You see a shit ton of outflow in ETH to Blur. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we never see ETH inflow. Why? That's because the ETH inflow is actually happening in internal transactions. It's happening through internal functions. We see this 113 ETH flowing in there, right? What is happening? How is that happening, right? And that's happening because they are swapping a ton of USDC for ETH, right? So the next question is, well, okay, we know this guy received one transaction ever, and we're going to pop this guy open in ETH from somewhere externally. And we also know that he received a ton of money in USDT and USDC, and they're both coming from the same addresses, which makes it really easy. So let's actually follow the funds flow back to from USDT and USDC, and we go back, and we go back, and we end up finding MEXC. That's where he's received the majority of funds from. And you might say, oh, Heidi, wait, he's only receiving 75,000. Like, where's the 140 coming from? This is coming from MEXC as well. Surprise. So all of it's coming from MEXC, which is an APAC-based exchange. Yeah, it's quite popular with a lot of people. It's got a lot of shit coins on it mainly. That's what I know it for. But if we take a look at Tether, it's the same thing for Tether. This guy is literally receiving from MEXC, but also Huobi as well, right? So that's interesting. We know he's receiving from MEXC. We know he's receiving from Huobi now in Tether. Where is he receiving his initial ETH from? And it shouldn't be surprising. The ETH shit's really easy because we see the USDT and we see the Tether again. So where is he receiving it from? Oh, surprise, surprise, we're going to see it comes from MEXC as well, right? So all of this shit's coming from MEXC. Okay, cool. So he initially tops up from MEXC and from Huobi. Somehow he does something on Blur where he ends up spending 32 ETH, and now he's like cashing out of 95 some odd ETH and sending it to a new fresh address. Okay, what did he spend that 32 ETH on? And let's actually take a look at that because that one's crazy to me. Here we have token transfers. If we go back here, we see he's spending his money on Blur. He is sweeping the floor of, do you guys know what this is? Does anyone know what this is? It's not Miladies. It's a derivative project of Miladies. Yep, Remilios. Exactly. It's Remilios, right? This guy is sweeping the floor. He literally bought 50 of these things. I don't know why the hell he decided 50 of these things, right? But yeah, you are around, Alan. I love it. But he bought 50 of them 10 days ago. Why he decided to do this, I don't know. He literally just he did that token transaction, like literally to swap, right? That USDC for ETH in order to buy those, which is pretty freaking wild, right? So he's doing all that. What else can we tell out of this guy? Like, what else is he doing with NFTs? And so that's what I actually like going to OpenSea. And actually just taking a look at people's addresses on OpenSea, because sometimes they'll also end up doxing themselves. And whoa, there's nothing in there anymore. Where do the NFTs all go to, right? Because he bought a whole bunch of other NFTs. Well, remember how I was saying, right, previously, suddenly he transfers 95, almost 100 some odd ETH out to a new fresh address. What is he doing here? And when you see bulk transfer and you see it being called this rapidly, sometimes to me, what that indicates sometimes is that a user is maybe, like an address has maybe been hacked, right? And immediately then those NFTs will go up for sale, and then you know the whole song and dance, right? But in this case, let's actually take a look here. So this guy is transferring his Remilios, right, to this new address, right? This new address doesn't hold anything, but it holds 50 of these things, 50 Remilios in here. Why? I don't know. Yeah, I know. I'm 100% with you on Brian. Like, people will make so much effing money on shitcoins and then dump them into NFTs. But in all honesty, Remilio is amazing. I swear, I love the Miladies. I'm a big fan of them. I'm a fan of derivative projects too. So, anyways, uh, he's doing that. But what else was he doing? Like, did he have any other NFTs, right? And we could take a look at all of his NFT transfers. And interestingly enough, he had this Zogs PEPE thing. All right, we saw Zogs earlier, right? Zogs is this thing run by, like, it's that PEPE project run by the creator of PEPE, right? So he's also transferring those out, or one that I think he's got. He also is transferring that out as well to this new fresh address where there's only the Zog in there as well. So he's moving all his money out of this address, and he's painstakingly partitioning it out. So the Remilio's going to one address, the Zog's going into another address, the ETH goes into another address. Why? I don't really know, because in all honesty, it's obvious to us here that we know on chain, this shit all belongs to him. But second off, if he ever wants to dump the Zogs, or if he ever wants to dump the Remilios, he's got to get his ETH from somewhere, right? So he's going to end up probably pulling from that 100 ETH at some point or another, right? Yes, I will send you guys over articles on a whole bunch of like stalking stuff, but I probably will do like a super kiddie intro to stalking people, like, and stalking addresses, probably down the line at one point or another, like when there isn't anything crazy happening, it's a boring week, we'll do like super simple stuff. Um, yeah, no, we're definitely gonna dox people. I don't want to, like, I have a lot of feelings about doxing people because I don't necessarily mean to do it. And I really don't want to dox anon people who really don't want to be doxed and are actually like doing real work, right? So I want to be really careful here when we're doing this kind of work that we're actually going after projects that like we think might be sketchy. Do I think PEPE is necessarily sketchy? I think that's a question for you guys right now, right? Because I didn't know what this was, so that's why I started digging into it. Um, but yeah, so anyways, um, let's see. Where were we? We're still on analyzing this address. So this address, what do we know about it? We know that this address is a signer, right? We know that it's really effing intramilios for some reason. Maybe that's the next thing that's going to pump, right? And we also know that it's clearly into PEPE and it's got the Zogs PEPE. But interestingly enough, let's go back to this guy is that this guy didn't hold any PEPE, which is kind of interesting. It was interesting to me, right? I was expecting him to be doing all sorts of random ass PEPE transactions. I didn't see it, right? So I thought that was kind of weird. Okay, so this is one of the signers, but remember, we left off on another signer, and I've only got another like whatever 10 15 minutes, so I'll go and talk about the other signer. So these signers, remember, they're all a part of signing that multi-sig in order to do the sex listings, right? So who's that other signer there? And let's go back to the Gnosis multi-sig. Let's take a look at this address. And also remember, this all started because we were looking at the PEPE deployer, right? And we saw the PEPE deployer sent out 2 ETH to 2 separate addresses, right? And this actually is one of those addresses, is the other one. So we looked at the first one, which is the one that ended up deploying the contract where the sex listings money is sitting in, right? The multi-sig. This is another address, right? And this address here, it also seems to have created various different multi-sigs. Interesting, right? So how do we go to find the multi-sigs here, right? So let's go ahead and take a look here at this transaction. So if this transaction, it says create proxy with nonce, and also we see that it's going to the safe proxy factory, right? This means that a contract is being deployed, right? And that, sorry, a multi-sig is being created. And so if we go down here and if we do the decode input data, like I keep on telling you guys, oh, just do that, you're not going to find shit, right? Because this actually here, this address, it literally, I'm not going to go into all the details of it. This thing is totally unrelated, or it's kind of related to the multi-sig, but it's not the multi-sig's address, right? The way you're going to find a multi-sig address from when you look at a multi-sig deployment is actually in the logs. And in the logs here, beautifully, we see who the owners are. We see the threshold. We see the fallback handler. We see also the address where the funds are getting deployed to, right? Which is this guy right here, right? And we see that this too has received some funds, right? So this contract is entirely different, right? This contract is not the sex listings contract, right? This isn't, right? It doesn't have any of the ERC20 tokens in it, I don't think. Oh no, sorry, it is the one. Never mind. This one is. The other one isn't. This one is nice because, yeah, we can see all of that stuff. It's also got the exact same signers on it, which is why it's confusing me right now. But one thing we didn't dig into here is who actually sent 42069 ETH to it, right? Because whoever sent 42069 ETH to it definitely knew what was going on here. Also here, we can fact check how much PEPE is actually sitting in this sex wallet, right? Is it the exact, like 6.9%? I don't know. You guys do the breakdown right here, right? Figure it out, right? But it's a ton of money, right? It's $49 million that it's literally sitting in here, right? And worth of tokens. And it's only got 42069 ETH in it as the balance. So if it ever wants to transfer these tokens out, it's probably going to have to rely on this money. Now, where did this money come from? And my initial thought was when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This address might belong to one of the signers. It doesn't, right? So I'm like, okay, is this just like a random scammer shill person? I don't effing know, right? Because like, come on, this is like a freaking troll move right here, right? So it got me wondering who this is. And I'm glad we're getting to the end of this because I'm going to let you guys dig into this guy a little bit more because, as I said, I don't want to dox anyone. That is not my take, unless I think it's a really shitty project. I don't think this is. I think these guys are actually trying to build something, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, we get to this address. right? This address has done thousands of transactions. This is a ton of stuff to look at. And now if you have access to Arkham, you can totally take a look at Arkham. You can also take a look at this address in something like a DeBank, which is exactly what we're going to do. Because honestly, this is overwhelming to me. I don't know what's going on. I don't have time to look through 1,000 transactions. You guys don't either. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick. And so here we can actually see that the majority of his money is sitting on ETH. But he's got money all over the place, right? And sometimes, by the way, when you see $2, like $2 being on Moonriver, question that, because sometimes it's actually a $0 value. Because today, actually, I have a total blank address actually in here, and it says I have $2 in there. I have nothing, right? But here we can see that they have some assets potentially like on Optimism, Arbitrum, all sorts of other places. But we can also see where they have split their funds to, right? And that'll give us kind of an understanding as to who this person might be. Now, one thing we can also do as well that we didn't do with that previous address because I already tried it, wasn't worth any time, was to stuff this address directly then into something like Google. Because you would be surprised by how many idiots post on Twitter like, oh, there's this airdrop, just this dropped your ETH address in there. Boom, they drop their ETH address in there. It happens all the freaking time. It is beautiful. It's great for when you're doing this kind of stuff. But yeah, we could also see that this person probably at one point or another was involved with Temple DAO. Might give you a understanding of what's going on here. I see some Ohm, right? I'm kind of getting a good feel for who this person might be. I don't know if any of you guys are into Ohms at all. Ohm at all, but or any Ohm forks. But Temple DAO was pretty big and inspired partially by Ohm. So, anyways, let's go and dig into this address a bit more. So here we've got a shit ton of transactions. I'm too bored to go through all this. But remember what I said, the first thing I always do when I'm analyzing an address? Go to that last page and I see who topped up that address, right? Because that'll help you understand as to who this person might be, right? And I think it's pretty obvious from when you start looking at this address. Now, what we might also do with this address too is go ahead and just stuff it directly in here, right? Just stuff it directly into OpenSea so you can get an understanding of all the different tokens that they hold in terms of NFTs. And again, we can get a really good understanding as to who these people are, right? They have some BitBears, which is another great project. And they've got some other random, really, really random NFTs in here, right? Honeycomb, which is also related to the Beras, right? They've got all sorts of stuff in here. But you can get a really good understanding for what area of the DeFi space this person probably is living in, right? Am I saying that this person necessarily is a part of the project? No. What I'm actually probably more likely saying here is if we look at this transaction is this person's probably trolling them, right? This person might be friends with the people related to the project, but I'm not sure 100% if they're actually involved with it, right? But yeah, you can stalk their Twitter. You can take a look at them. They're legit. They're involved with a lot of different projects. And if you actually take a look at them and you're like, well, wait a second, Heidi, this guy here, like, how are you so sure it's him? Well, if you go on his Twitter, which you can, right, because he literally calls himself the same thing on Twitter, basically, is you'll see that he's also talking about certain tokens that we see being held in this address here, right? Remember when we were on DeBank and there's all this other random crap in here like GP? Yeah, if you take a look at Twitter, it definitely overlaps, right? Yeah, we could totally see how early people bought PEPE. That's one thing that we can easily do in the last couple of minutes. But yeah, one thing I would recommend before we take a look at who were early purchasers of PEPE is backspace real quick. If you guys want to ultimately find out who's behind PEPE, I would watch those signer addresses. Those signer addresses, ultimately, someone's going to screw up down the line, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, however you want to see it, right? But someone's going to muck up down the line. And it could happen in like 3 years from now, because often that is what happens, is people forget, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, I have all this dust in my addresses, and I just want to clean house, whatever. That's when people end up doxing themselves. And I'm telling you guys that now because don't do it. This is more of a PSA for everyone out there. PEPE project, if you're watching this, please don't do this to yourself. I feel like everyone's better than this, but alas, it does happen. I know that people have spare change that they want to get rid of. So anyways, cool. Let's talk about first PEPE transactions that ever happened. And I'm going to click out of all of this trash. So the problem with looking at Etherscan is that Etherscan's not going to go far back enough. And Actually, before I go into the first Pepe transactions, actually, maybe it might. Let's actually see if it does. There's one thing I also wanted to call out because, um, Brian, I'll get to your question in like 2 seconds because I really don't want to forget this because this is some wild shit that I want to like call out here. Um, that's pretty bad. So there are a lot of scammers that are making it look like the Pepe deployer is airdropping tokens to random people. For example, it looks like here the Pepe deployer. Whoop, can I make that? Can I? What am I doing? It looks like the Pepe deployer here is literally sending this Pulse Pepe to this guy via the Uniswap router. That's not actually happening. What's actually happening here is the way the contract is programmed is that it emits this as a log so that Etherscan will pick it up, right? And it's pretty bad because if you're looking at Etherscan, you might think to yourself, "Oh, it's legit. The Pepe deployer is sending this out. Like I'm totally getting a free airdrop, right?" Um, Pulse Pepe is a pulse oximeter. That is great. um, there's Pulse Pepe, but here, there's 135 pages of this shit. Like, Pepe Zycore was the first one to do this. They do this claim airdrop crap, right? Where they literally make it look like the Pepe deployer is airdropping this shitcoin to people, right? I mean, it is outrageous. And I really like, to me, this is like the next thing I feel like going after Etherscan on because this needs to be stopped, right? There's a way that you can just block out these transactions because ultimately the Pepe deployer is not performing any of these transactions. The problem is how do you do this, right? Because there are various different transactions where an address involved in them might not actually be initiating or executing the particular transaction, but I think there are ways that you could probably read various different token contracts to better parse out this crap. Now, Brian, I will get to your point, but I also left you guys off on one other thing. Remember how I said at the beginning, it's really effing easy to launch token contracts these days? Well, it really is. So Pepe, let's take a look at the contract again. We can actually see how they deployed this contract. It wasn't very smart, right? They basically used Open Zeppelin. Now, Open Zeppelin is awesome. I love it, and I can't spell Zeppelin. Open Zeppelin's awesome. They are the ones who basically create, I guess, template code that a ton of the ecosystem relies on, right? But what they have now is they have this really cool wizard function in here that allows you to basically create a token out of thin air, right? So for example, we can call this token, I don't know, Rect, and we can call it like maybe R3, right? And we can pre-mint, let's say we want to pre-mint whatever bajillion, right? We can do that. We can make it burnable. We can make it pausable. We can add the permit function to it, which I'll tell you guys about some other time. Flash minting, all sorts of crap to this. And literally, we just download the code and then deploy. It is that simple, right? Yeah, oh my God, yeah, I do. I do want to use Arkham really badly. And what else was there too? Yeah, I do also want to deploy a token. Arkham I don't want to use per se, and here's the only reason why I don't want to use Arkham is if we can get licenses for everyone watching this live stream, I'm down to use Arkham. But if I can't get licenses for everyone, I don't want to do it because I want people to be able to follow along. Like I don't want to lock people out. So I want to airdrop you access to Arkham. And if I can do that, like get like X number of licenses that like we can maybe trade around, I'd be so down for using Arkham because Arkham is extremely badass and amazing. But Metasleuth is amazing as well. So Metasleuth, real quick, because I feel like my live stream might die. You can basically pop in an address in here. Like let's pop in this address. And by the way, this is by Blocksec, and I love Blocksec. They do amazing blockchain monitoring stuff. But they help analyze a token for you, or sorry, to analyze an address for you extremely quickly. Look how fast this was, right? And I can see all the different transactions that went to the Pepe deployer went from the Pepe deployer, right? We can see the contract transaction to create the Pepe token. We can see all the other stuff that they did, like they sent to this proxy contract, all sorts of stuff, right? I want to spend a whole other live stream on this. Arkham is Arkham Intelligence. But yeah, I would love to use it sometime. Like Arkham Intelligence is badass. Like you get these like cool monitor and like you get to basically really good overview. It's kind of like Debank where you get an overview of like what's going on with a particular token, right? Or a particular, sorry, address rather. But it just gives you an insane overview of it. It's like a Dune dashboard of like an address on steroids. That's the best way I can describe it. There's also attributions with it, and I'll spend a whole other live stream about my feelings about attributions at some point or another, like why certain addresses are tagged as like Bybit, why certain addresses are tagged as Binance, like, and whether or not they're necessarily trustworthy. Um, because yeah, sometimes they're not, and sometimes it's worthwhile fact checking. But yeah, anyways, that's Meta Sleuth for you. But I want to spend a whole other, like, I was thinking this time, this like live stream around, I was gonna show you guys Meta Sleuth, but then like, I don't know, I feel like we got too into Etherscan. I don't know, like we talked about too many other things, so I didn't get time to. But I will spend the dedicated time on Meta Sleuth at some point or another. One thing to note about MetaSleuth, if you guys ever want to follow along with me, and I'll probably talk about this in another live stream, is you just need to get a login. And right now it's free, which is really awesome. Um, let's go and answer Brian's question really quick. So how can we find um, uh, who the initial traders were of a particular token, right? And the problem is if you take a look at DEX trades, right, you're not going to actually find out because DEX trades on Etherscan only shows you the last 25 or so records, I want to say. If you click view all, I think you might be, it might take forever to load. Maybe it'll actually load this time. But I don't know if it goes back then further than 400 pages. Yeah, this is a problem. So we can see people buying and selling Pepe, but we can't actually see who the first interactors were with with the contract. And this is the limitation with Etherscan. Now, I think we might need to spend a whole other time talking about how we could actually figure out who the first people were to purchase it. But for that, we're gonna have to spend some time in Dune, right? And I don't know if you guys have ever, yeah, Leatherscan just is like, they only can show so much. They're kind of like free tool a bit. Like, I don't know if you guys have ad blockers on, but I totally use ad blockers because they like advertise stuff everywhere now because they need money. But I think it's just for hosting space. Like, imagine if you had to go through all the USDC transactions ever. That would be absolute insanity. Or Tether, like even worse, right? So they limit it. So we can't see back than 2,000 pages. That's usually how it is. But if we use Dune, we can easily write a query to do that. And I might actually do that for next time just to show you guys who the first buyers were, because that would probably be pretty interesting. Now, one thing we might want to do though before we do that is actually take a look at DEX tools real quick, and take a look at the Pepe coin, right? And actually see when it took off, because it looks like there wasn't any trading volume really. So on the 14th it launched, right? Um, but it looks like it was only then on the 16th where it started trading, right? So the 16th isn't like, that's probably when we'd want to start looking. So I am going to pause now because I've already been talking for an hour and I can continue talking on this train. But I want to know what you guys think of Pepe. Do you think it's worth it? Right? Do you trust the project team? So far, what we know about the project team without going into Discord. What are your guys' current thoughts? I kind of want to hear it, like from the chat. I mean, I'm pretty sure what Gary thinks of Pepe. If we already know what, the unfortunate newsletter that was released today thought about Pepe, then, I'm pretty sure we know what Gary thinks of it. I mean, Gary's always down for some memes, right? Gary's definitely down for memes. Anyways, okay, I'm gonna sign off now, but I love the idea of us, if we could all get access to Arkham in one way or another. I don't know, for like, I can create maybe a Telegram channel for us or something like that. If there's a way that we could like figure out how to share like access to it, like for people who want to follow along, that'd be dope. I would love using the tool then, because then, I don't feel like anyone's left out. That would be insane. But yeah, I think I'll set up a Telegram channel maybe for us. I don't know. Thoughts, Brian? Thoughts, like, crew? Um, yeah. Oh, I don't know if the creator's a serial scammer. I mean, the whole thing's somewhat sketch. I think we all know that. He can't be the owner of the $49 million wallet, because remember, we just saw that multi-sig. It's co-owned by at least 8 addresses, right? 5 of which have to sign off. So he doesn't own that money. And on top of that, that money is also for the sex listings. So that doesn't make any sense. So wait, thank you so much. Yeah, get back to us, and I'll like figure out a way like how to set up like a Telegram channel. But I'd love to dive in this deeper, and I totally agree with you guys. Like they did a great job of being anon while not being super sketchy. Like there are ways of being sketchy, and we'll see that down the line. These guys weren't sketchy at all. They were just really smart and just friggin' received the money, deployed the contracts, went about their day, right? They didn't send themselves any money directly, at least to the deployer address, right? But that's a whole other story. Who are the first people who got this way? So yeah, we'll work on a Dune dashboard next time, and then maybe if we all have Arkham intelligence, we can then really dig into those first token holders. But by then, we'll probably have a new meme coin to go after or a new crazy scam to go after. I don't know if they blacklisted any addresses, but yeah, I would have to look into that. That's actually another query we could easily write on Dune too to see who they've blacklisted. In fact, before I sign off, let's actually take a look at what exists on Dune because now you guys have me curious. Um, does anything exist for PEPE? Come on, PEPE metrics. Can you take a look at PEPE metrics real quick? Let me in the stream. um, okay. Buyer count, seller count. Yeah, okay. Here we can take a look at the traders. But this is just looking at the net profit. This is looking at the buys in the last 24 hours. I don't want to do that. I don't want to look at high yield addresses. This is the problem with a lot of Dune dashboards. It's like literally, it's just like candlestick analysis, but like in dashboard format. I'd much rather have the early transactions that happened, right? And of course, these yields are good because we can see when the snapshots happened, but I actually want to see the transactions that happened the earliest. And so sometimes the problem with Dune is they basically rate limit you, and I have to log in for all of this crap, and like we're gonna have to spend some time on that, but like they rate limit you on this, and so that's why we're not seeing all the different transactions here that I want to see, right? But we can build one out, which would be super fun. Oh, sweet, is this the blacklist article? Let's see it. I'll drag it over. Pepe devs bots. Oh, okay. Actually, let's see if it was blacklisted. Blah, blah, blah. Let's actually check if it was. Sorry, I know it sounds like I have trust issues, but I feel like crypto gives people trust issues, and Twitter really does. Um, yeah. Yeah, I know. You guys should have just like sent me a Rickroll link. I would have really appreciated that. So let's read the contract again, and remember blacklist, just pop that address in there, query it. It's saying it's an invalid argument. Why is that? Maybe it's is this an incomplete address? What? Where is that article again? I'm confusion. Is this address? Oh my God. Okay, someone's claiming that they're a creator of Pepe. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks. This is what I need in my life. Yeah, I'm gonna make you guys watch this shit with me. And now it's taking forever to load, which is like the ultimate Rickroll back at you. Um, We're gonna let it load though. I really want to watch this because it's one of my favorite songs. In fact, actually, there was a time where I had to leave my computer running for several hours. So what I would do is I would honestly leave a 10-hour Rickroll video open, and sometimes I would have it playing. So it is a BSC address, but question is if it's a BSC address, why was it? It must have been blacklisted then on BSC. Is this another Pepe, right? Is this another deployed Pepe, right? Because from what I understand now, Pepe is on Ethereum, but we'd have to dig into whether or not it's on BSC. So I know, sorry, Brian. You try me again next week. Let's see. That worked. I think Binance mispublished the address. Oh no, they did. Oh, that's kind of unfortunate. Anyways, some feedback we got to give Binance. It happens sometimes. Like, honestly, the government has, when they like OFAC addresses, there was one time back in 2018 where they totally fucked up an ETH address as well. Like, it happens to people. Anyways, this one's blacklisted, but what would be really cool is actually to monitor how many other addresses they decide to blacklist. Because the problem is, as I said before, if you've got a blacklist function, chances are you might have people come knocking on your door to be like, yo, can you blacklist this? Can you blacklist that? And it's more of a curse than it is a blessing, I would say, for most projects. So yeah. Okay. Anyways, I'm done with today's stream. Thank you so much for dealing with me and my weird camera, audio issues that we had earlier. And let me know what you guys want to see next week. Honestly, like DM me whatever crap. Else, we might go on dealing with PEPE. I might also just do random impromptu streams. Like one thing I was thinking is if a crazy hack happens, we might just track that hack altogether, which would be really dope. Oh wait, you have a question, Brian? What's the question? OFAC? Well, don't touch OFAC addresses. Don't touch them. I will go on a rant about OFAC stuff at some point. But like OFAC's the Office for Assets and Control. They're part of the Treasury. They can sanction addresses, meaning you can't interact with them, and if you do, not jail, but like fines, big fines. And you don't want those fines. So like Tornado Cash, you don't want to interact with it because you're gonna have to pay fines, all that kind of crap. Anyways, I'm gonna get out of here, but let me know what you guys want to talk about next week. Otherwise, I'll probably bring some other crap in and we can analyze whether or not something's sketch or not. And yeah, I'll probably set up a Telegram group so we can all chit chat and figure out what we want to talk about. But yeah, thank you so much. How do they find these addresses? Yeah, no, they don't necessarily call me, but yeah. Anyways, see you guys. I'll get out of here now. Bye.